Excellent.
Recording is on.
There we go. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the February virtual meeting here for ISC Squared Central Florida. Excited that you could all join us. If you're watching this post of the event, welcome, and hope you get a lot out of what we're going to do this evening, because it's going to be just a little different tonight. So basically, going to kick it off with some opening announcements, as I always do, and then we're going to do a sandworm book club discussion. So we've got some panelists, got some folks that have read the book on the in the meeting with us tonight, our own members, and we're going to have a discussion about it. So I'm real excited for us to do that. And then we have Dr. Jerry Roberts. She's going to present. She has a presentation for us regarding digital natives and antivirus and all kinds of cool stuff like that. And then we'll get it all wrapped up around 8:30 and give you back your evening. So some quick announcements real quick. I got to say a special thanks to Andy Jalper over at 8x8, who helps us out with this for the platform that we're using here to do our virtual meetings. Andy, you want to say a word or two?
Yeah, hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending today. 8x8, we're a global unified communications and contact center solution. Just appreciate the opportunity to sponsor the chapter, and hope you guys enjoy tonight's meeting.
Cool. Thank you very much, Andy. Always a pleasure. And of course, we have our sponsors that continue to help us out. I know we've got Mr. Bob Henderson from ISG, who's been a longtime supporter of the chapter. Bob, you want to just say a couple words real quick about ISG?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, James. We've been around for a while, headquarters in New Jersey, our second office in Central Florida, and we focus on a lot of, from our DNA around, from the government days, around digital forensics and cybersecurity and intelligence. So that's kind of what we do, and help a lot of clients out throughout North America.
Cool. Yeah, so definitely check out Bob if you need some help in those areas. And of course, all our other sponsors that we've got as well. Appreciative for their support. So if you've never attended one of our Central Florida chapter meetings before, the ISC Squared chapters are based on a foundation of 4 things: connect, educate, inspire, secure. And you can easily read through the items that attribute to each of those. But so essentially, we want to make sure any events that we do, training, meetings, happy hours, whatever, connect with one of these 4 items. Certainly tonight, you're going to get somewhat connected. You're virtually connected, and we've got everybody, and we've got a great chat going. I know that gets a little spirited, but it's kind of a good way to kind of start chatting with folks. I'm certainly going to get some education tonight, and hopefully drive some inspiration and bring some security tips to your organization or into your lives. So kind of how it all works out. My name is James McQuiggan. I am the chapter president for Central Florida. On the call, and you can probably see them in the cameras. We've got Walter Spielman, who is our vice president. We have Christopher Hickernell, who is our membership. He handles all of the CPEs and tracks everybody that's here tonight. So on your, as you've connected, we want to make sure that if you've submitted your ISC Squared member number, we want to make sure that we identify who you are. So if you've got some funky symbol, Avi, we know it's Avi, so that's fine. But if you're new to our events, make sure we've got your name up there so Christopher can give you the proper credit. Then we got Paul O'Connor, who is our treasurer, handles all the money. Debbie Carr, our chapter secretary, handles all the food and coordination of our events. But unfortunately, Debbie couldn't be here tonight, and we couldn't have any food for everybody. We really do miss the in-person events, and we do hope we get back with some later on this year. We have Amy Rooks, who handles all of our sponsorship and the sponsors. I know later on this year, if we do get back face-to-face and we do our annual meeting, we're going to be looking for sponsors. And then we have Tom Plummer, who handles all of our education and outreach. I believe most of them are on the call this evening, so nice shout out to all of them. Okay, so some upcoming events. With regards to our chapter meetings, we're kind of lined up right now for the next 4 months that we're going to do this virtually, kind of hoping July we might get in real life. We're still waiting on certain things to kick in, whether that's going to be at Full Sail, if they're going to start allowing groups with Valencia or ECPI. We're still waiting on some things like that. So I'm saying we're virtual at least through till June. If something else changes and we can come back sooner, great. If not, then we're kind of hoping for July right now. But next month, continuing the trend of, continuing the trend of previous months where we've had folks that aren't in our local area or in our time zone, we're going to have Dr. Sean P. Murray from Murray Security Services, a good friend of mine and colleague. He's going to be presenting. We're still working on topics. And then we have Schuyler Town. Christopher had come across him in his presentation and certainly felt that it was going to be worthwhile. So we're excited. We're going to get those two here next month. The cool thing is in April, we're going to have, I've got it lined up. I've got to firm up the times with them, but I think they are locked in. But we're going to have the CISO from Starbucks. No, we won't be giving out any free coffee. And then I have a virtual CISO who works for, she doesn't post the company that she works for, but she's popular around the speaking circuit. I saw her presentation last week with regards to getting into the industry and starting work. And so she's going to speak. She's agreed to come present to us in April. So I'll have more information about that event, about those speakers next month. So those are our two presentations lined up. Of course, we've got Patrick, who runs our Central Florida ISSA. We have they have their next event March 12th, and I believe their speaker, they've got their speaker lined up. Their email, I think, went out today. So if you're on the ISSA mailing list, you would have received it. If not, you can visit the website. Cybersecurity nonprofit group, the Orlando chapter, Bob Henderson, who runs that. Bob, do you guys have a February event coming up, or have you had it already? You may have to unmute.
We had February. We started, I'm going to do a plug here. We started a monthly CISO panel, and we kicked that off in February with CISO from Beyond Trust. I was the moderator. And in March, on March 11th, we announced our second CISO panel, Thomas Maldonado, the CISO from the NFL.
Oh, cool.
So the invite's out on social media. Sign up. Myself and Maury will be moderating that panel with Tomas. So it's going to be a great evening to learn from the NFL what he goes through on season and off season. So be some good stories. Again, it's a day in the life of a CISO and what he goes through. And the first one went extremely well, so we had a good reception. But you can connect with me if you don't see the invite out on social media. I'll make sure you see it. But
they can go out to csnp.org/Orlando, though, right?
Yeah, I think,
The link I got there? Okay.
The link should be there. It's on Meetup as well, but you can
Meetup. Okay.
me on LinkedIn as well. But I think it's going to be a great, every month we have CISOs lined up.
Cool.
So.
And then we have Citrusec. I think, Sean, Ian, you guys are still kind of on hold with that, right? Hopefully get back later on this year. We'll see. And then ISACA, they're kind of on hold as well with their events. But we've got the virtual events with ISSA, us, ISC Squared, and of course, CSNP. So definitely worth checking out. So we've still got around 200. I think we may have dropped to 237, but 239 active members. So thank you to all of those that are our chapter members. Thank you to all those that have recently renewed your membership. We appreciate that. And those folks that have recently joined as well. So one of the big announcements we've got this month, we're not locked in on the 24th. We're waiting. It's either the 17th or April 24th. We're going to do an 8-hour virtual training event with this particular group, Not So Secure. They have a Hacking 101 course that they've got. It's going to be all virtual. Right now it's at $100 a person. We have not opened registration yet. We're going to see if we can't find a sponsor to kind of help us out. This will be open to ISC Squared chapter members, where you'll get a day. If you've never tried, doing any type of hacking, this will be a great experience. But this will be something we're going to make available as one of our training events. We missed it last year with everything going on. We're going to try and do this virtual one. We should have registration open March 1st. We will send out an email with the announcement and all the information. So if you're part of the mailing list as a chapter member, you'll get the information. So no prior experience is required. From what I understand, everything will be done through the browser. So it should be rather interesting with regards to that. Excited to see it, and thanks to Tom for reaching out to these folks. I think he had done something with them before, and this would be a good opportunity for all of us just to kind of have fun hacking and not get caught for it. So there we go. I got reached out from one of our former speakers, and I think Peter's on the call tonight with us as well, or in the meeting with us tonight. But Peter Warmker has written a fantastic book called Confessions of a CIA Spy. Peter is the CIA spy in this case. The Art of Human Hacking. There's some great quotes and stuff there. It's out on Amazon. You can go search for Peter in Amazon or wherever. But The Art of Human Hacking, really cool. Excited that he's been able to put that out there, and hopefully does well. So go check out the book. Go buy the book, and we'll see how it goes from there. Good luck, Peter. One of our members, good friend of the chapter, Tom Turo, he reached out to me desperate. He's like, I'm looking for a GRC specialist at InfoSec. So they've got a job description. It's through Advent Health. I told him I'd promote it, tell everybody out at the meeting. So I don't know if Tom's on the call tonight.
But yeah, I am, James. Thank you very much for promoting it. Yeah, that's a great position, great people to work for. So anyone out there looking for somebody, thank you.
Cool. Good to know. Don't forget my PayPal account there, Tom. You know,
okay, yeah, no worries. I already passed through.
No, I'm teasing. No, but yeah, so always happy to help Tom out and Advent Health, because they've helped us out before in the past. We did a breakfast brief there. Hopefully get back there and do another one sometime soon. So if you know anybody in the GRC space, you know, there you go. Cool.
Thanks, James.
You bet. We put out a call for this, and I think Tom said we had one person said they were interested and one person said they'd help to mentor. So I just want to put it out there again. We're looking to start up a CISSP study group. We're still working on logistics, but if it's something you're interested in, we're going to need folks that are from the chapter that are interested either in helping or learning. So let us know. Reach out to Tom at education@ISC2chapter-centralflorida.org. Let them know that you're either interested in participating as a learner or a mentor. That way we can look to put this group together. So I wanted to share that with everybody again. We also have the group hubs, on community.isc2.org. You do not need an ISC squared certification to join the community, but we're looking to kind of make that our environment where we can have all of our presentations, all of the slides information, rather than keeping it up on the SharePoint drive that we've got. We want to have it in an area that can utilize the group hubs. We've only got a handful of folks in there now. So if you want to go back and look at previous presentations or videos, we're going to be posting them in that environment. So good place. And it's a good way to get involved with the ISC squared community as well and be a part of our chapter hub that we've got out there as well. If you've got any questions, you can email us at info@isc2chapter-centralflorida.org. Cool. All righty. So that's it. Me with my presentations, all I had that I wanted to share with everybody. What we're going to do now is something we've never done before here in this chapter, and I'm real excited. I'm a little nervous, but I know that the folks that we've got on, I saw we got Patrick on, and we've got Jerry, and we've got Andy, and we've got Barry. So there are 4 panelists that we're going to be able to speak towards the book. I'm going to moderate the discussion, kind of drive the discussion. Oh, there we go. As we go through this, I've got questions. I've already got this ready to go and kind of how I want to steer this. And essentially, I'm going to call on the panelists. So Andy, Patrick, Jerry, or Barry, I'll call your name, read the question, and then the question may be done for multiple, for all 4 of you. It might be just for a couple of folks, and see how we go from there. If you, as an audience member, you've read the book and you want to participate, you've got some insight you want to add to it, there is the little raise hand icon on the screen. Just click that, and we will see that you've got something you want to say. And then that way I'll call upon you, and that way we can try to keep it somewhat controlled with everything else. And we'll go from there. So as I said, we got Dr. Jerry Roberts, Patrick Heisinger, Andy Lenzen, and Barry McConnell as our panelists tonight. I'm real excited. I'm going to turn off the desktop sharing. Let's see, did that do it? Yep, there we go. Cool. So whether Jerry, Patrick, Andy, Barry, I think Andy's on the phone, so he's dialed in, so he can't have his webcam. Or Barry, if you guys want to put your cameras on, you're welcome to do that as we go through this. So first of all, we're going to start off with Dr. Jerry Roberts. Jerry, tell me what you like or you didn't like about the book.
Hey guys, so what I really enjoyed about the book was the fact that he laid out some of the history of it, so it would help people who were kind of maybe not so familiar with the history of, the cybersecurity landscape, viruses and all that, could actually understand it better. Especially the part about the conflict in Ukraine and how that's been a big driver in some of this. Most people only hear, Russia bad, Russia hacked something in the news, so they don't have that background. So I really did enjoy the fact that they, that he actually enjoyed that he put that in there. So I enjoyed that part.
Cool. Very good. Barry, what do you want to add? Same question.
One of the things I really enjoyed was the linear approach he did to everything, where he tied every piece together, starting with the early stuff and showing how that expanded into this next attack. And then here's the weakness in that attack, so here's how they fixed that and moved on. And it really hit me when not too long ago we saw that announcement about the attempted hack on the water supply here in Florida. All I could think of was, oh God, here it comes.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion in itself right there.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, what did you like or didn't like about the book?
Well, it really brought some great memories. In 2002, I had an opportunity to travel to the Republic of Georgia to track the money from Miami and Chicago to the Global Relief Fund, which was going to Chechen fighters and to the Taliban. And so when Andy Greenberg was talking, writing about the invasion of Georgia and how it got close to Tbilisi in 2008, I remember exactly, my thoughts and the feelings I had 2002 and 2008 watching the Olympics and seeing, Putin on camera as the tanks are rolling into Georgia. And it kind of really points at, yes, this is all state sponsored, but really, what are why are we here? I mean, talking about this book, it's because the Russia, China, North Korea, not only are they looking to steal our secrets, but they're really, they're violating their own people's rights. They're, the civil violations just can go on. And it kind of puts it in perspective when Andy was talking about Stuxton. Did we open up a can of worms that we can't, the Pandora's box, we can't get it back in, whatever metaphor you use. But, I think that's what separates the U.S. and those countries.
Right. Yeah. We think back to Stuxnet and that Pandora box that was. Patrick, anything you want to add that you like or didn't like about the book?
Oh, I found it really interesting. I had read of some of those individual events before, but I never saw them all strung together, and I found that really interesting.
Cool. What I've realized is I've asked my first question, and we haven't really given a good synopsis of the story. So let me throw this one over to Barry. Could you give us a brief synopsis or a quick rundown of the book in, I don't know, a minute or less?
Okay. Basically, what he did was follow the trail, and he started in a couple of events that happened very early on. He talked about Stuxnet and how they basically it was an attack on a physical environment, and this was kind of like the first time that's ever happened. I know your history in industrial controls, so this had to have been a nightmare for you. But what the neat thing about it is, what he does is he starts with these basic things that had happened, and he describes, here's how this attack happened, and here's how we caught on to it, and then following the trail. Okay, these guys took this stuff and they made these changes, And then we had this attack. So what he's doing is following a trail of clues from one attack to another based on either how the attack was done or the tools that were used. And he follows it all the way through and then gets to the point of, okay, now that we can see the trail, who did it? And that became basically the second half of the book was, how do you figure out who's doing this stuff?
Exactly. Yep.
And what really impressed me was, everybody talks about Russia and China and North Korea. And Dan Gear is sitting here going, yeah, well, I can name 12 places that are doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
So
very good. Cool.
It's a great detective story.
Yeah, because as he describes, he was following around. Originally, it was when he because he's Andy Greenberg, who is the author, writes for Wired magazine, and they'd come to him looking with regards more to the Russian interference in the election. And then, of course, you had NotPetya and all that, and that basically opened up the can of worms, so to speak, with regards to his investigation and everything that led down to it. So it started with one topic that his editors wanted him to write about, and he ended up finding all this other information, and then, lo and behold, we get the book. Mm-hmm. So, Andy, let me ask you this. If you could ask the author one question, what would it be?
What were you thinking traveling to Russia, thinking that you're going to run into the GRU? I mean, in putting all these things together, all these people, there's a very good chance the Russians are also interviewing these individuals. I would think, right. I'm not sharing it. I'm not going to share any state secrets, obviously, but they're out there as well. And if you're making noise against them, they are definitely have you on your radar. All these trips, and I'm sure they know every Wired editor and journalist, and for that matter, they may even have every CSSP, on their books. So if you travel over there for pleasure, you may want to check your laptop. So that would be my main question.
All right, cool. Yeah. Patrick, is there a question that you would have asked him, or would want to ask Andy?
Yes, with a lot of the people he talked to, or many of them seem to be the type that you would suspect of exaggerating things, maybe, or exaggerating their own role or something like that. So I would ask him of all the people you interviewed, how many of them do you think were telling you the whole truth, or were many of them stretching it a bit?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I know usually with the folks at Wired, when it comes to that information, they're usually double checking and verifying on resources. But yeah, no, that certainly comes up. You want to make sure that the information you're getting is valid. So Jerry, I'm curious, because I know your background in education and as an awesome professor over at Valencia College. How much did you know about the subject with regards to what you were reading in Sandworm, and what are 2 or 3 things you took away?
Well, I knew quite a bit, but some of the history for Ukraine, Russia, I wasn't as familiar with. So did take some of that away from that, as well as just some of the industrial control system stuff. Interestingly enough, with the current water attack, my father worked for Palm Beach County Water Utilities for 30 years. He was one of their disaster recovery people. So this was one of those recently that was like, he told them it was going to happen, and it finally happened. So it was kind of interesting with that. But as far as the book goes, just a lot of the history was kind of interesting because it was not as much, that I knew. I knew the technical and, some of the background for some of the groups, but not so much the whole Ukraine, Russia, everything that was going on there.
Cool. All right. Yeah, it's there's always some interesting things to be able to take away from this, especially with the things that he found. Patrick, kind of the same thing. Did you know much about the subject beforehand, and what couple of things did you take away?
Some of it. I follow what's in the news, and actually with some other people had gotten intensely into Stuxnet back when that hit the press. Went to several sessions on it and read quite a bit. The Ukraine issues and the other things like that, you kind of notice those, but it's maybe a little far away. I think I'll pay more attention to stuff like that now after seeing it all linked together.
Yeah. Kind of gives you that awareness, opens your eyes a little bit, kind of freaks out. So I'm really curious because I know, Andy, you're very familiar with the subject and everything that went on. I was curious, did you have to Google anything that you read from the book?
You know what, I drilled down in the, when they were talking about the only backup for the nurse of being found over in Congo or West Africa.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was really news to me, and how they brought back their system. And then I was kind of like that aspect, because all those interviews did not want to be identified. So the anonymous source, we get a lot of, right, a federal government source, right, but nobody wants to be. So how true is it? So it was really curious, and that aspect, and then also the Marcus Hutchins aspect for WannaCry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another book waiting to be written as well. Marcus's whole adventure and getting busted here in Vegas.
Well, yeah.
Barry, anything for you? Did you have to Google anything?
What I did Google was who some of these people are, because some of the names I recognized, but a lot of them I didn't. And it was interesting to see the backgrounds of some of these folks.
Right. So now it kind of adds that little more awareness of these people. And have you come across their names since then, or has it just been just
one or two of them? Well,
okay.
I really started digging in on some of Dan Gear's stuff because he's published so much.
Right.
So I started pulling that and reading it. And he had a quote I really loved. He says, "We are standing on the banks of our Rubicon."
Standing on the banks of what?
Our Rubicon.
A Rubicon, right. Which kind of takes me into the kind of my next comment or next question is, was there a particular message or line, or we'll call it a book bite, that stood out to you, Jerry? Sorry, I should have said your name first.
So yeah, the one chapter about resilience, that kind of stood out to me because I feel like it's something that's often ignored in our industry. Everyone focuses on, we got to stop the attack. We got to stop the attack. They don't really get to the point, well, what do we do if it happens? How do we recover? And, having my dad doing what he has been doing for many, many years, he retired back in 2013, but he for years did disaster recovery for Palm Beach County Water Utilities. When Hurricane Andrew went through, he was one of the people. Yeah, he was one of the people that worked with them on that. So just the fact that there's the point that, hey guys, you know what, we can do, amazing security, be the best security in the whole world. Somebody's going to figure that out. Somebody's going to break it. So what do we do when they do break it? How do we mitigate it? How do we, recover? And talking about how everything is digital now. All the ICS is digital. There's no manual switch. I can't go to a power station and pop a circuit in some places. So that really stood out to me. Yeah,
I mean, even in the ICS space, I mean, they're looking to move certain things into the cloud. And from an ICS standpoint, I know in my circles with colleagues, that makes us all nervous, like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. They're always wanting, with those control systems, want to keep their arms around it. And so, yeah, so with regards to ICS and trying to isolate and segregate those networks, with resiliency, I mean, we could have a whole nother topic on discussion on resiliency, but for me, resiliency I look at it and go, we should already be doing this, but it's kind of like trying to re-emphasize certain key elements to make sure we're resilient, we have protected. But in the truth, or from what I've seen in the grand scheme of things, you know, you want to have it. We as security professionals want to have the best and strongest environments, and everything's protected, and multi-factor authentication, and everyone's got password management, strong identity access management. And when it comes down to it, it's what we can afford based on what we can get from our budgets. So yeah, it's always makes it quite interesting. Cool. All right. Patrick, was there same question over to you, sir? Any particular book bite or message or line that you took away from that struck you?
Well, a couple of things. One, the skill of the people who have the skill to pick apart the code and analyze this. Wish I had that skill. The other point was the book was talking about basically industrial control systems, but from my previous career in healthcare, there's lots of X-ray machines and things like that that are exposed to the internet, and you think, oh my God, what could go wrong?
Right. Oh yeah, lots could go wrong, and we've seen hospitals been hit with ransomware and everything else. So yeah, no, that continues to be the case. So let me throw this one over to Andy. Is there, you know, what did you think about, we've touched upon it already, some of you mentioned, but what did you think about the author's research with regards to the credibility of the sources? I know we kind of touched, Patrick mentioned it, but I was kind of curious your thoughts about, you know, how easy or hard was it to get the information they've got? Granted, they went to Russia.
Well, I really thought he did a great job in his research. You know, he just didn't call these people, so it's really kind of a clue in our type of work that he did face-to-face interviews, and he spent the time with someone, and we're talking about technical in nature, but he's writing something that's a really a personal thing, the story of all these individuals, and most of these individuals had an embarrassing story, right? They were essentially hacked, something they don't really want to freely talk about. So that was very impressive, I thought. You know, it's something that, you know, he obviously had a great budget because it wasn't cheap traveling the world to find these individuals.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I can certainly agree to that. So Barry, do you think you're more paranoid, scared, or do you have dirty underwear after reading this book?
Actually, what concerned me the most after reading this book was how disconnected all the information was. I mean, Andy did a great job of tracking it down, but what came through to me was how all these people were working in isolation. And if there had been some kind of central clearinghouse or something where they could share information, because you ended up with 3 names for the same thing because there was 3 different groups looking at it from different angles and didn't realize that they were actually looking at the same thing. So my concern there was, how do we get better at that? Yeah, granted, nobody wants to air their dirty laundry, but we're not going to get better unless we start sharing that information.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see a lot of that with industries, you know, with regards to privacy and data breaches. You know, some organizations have to report, you know, if they have a data breach or suffer anything with PII information, they have to report that. But then you have a lot of organizations that get data breached, and it's their own, you know, private organization, their own proprietary stuff, may not have any of that data or information, and so they don't have to report. But I know in the electricity energy space, it's always an ongoing issue as well, where, you know, organizations get hit. It's like, let's learn from this so that other folks, it doesn't happen to them.
Yeah, when we were talking about resiliency earlier,
right,
the thing that came to my mind was go to any grocery store and watch when the power goes out. How many of those cashiers can't simply make change?
Oh, now we're picking on the millennials now.
No, I'm picking on our education system.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. Yeah, well, I mean,
we need those fundamental skills.
being able to, when you're handed a 20 and the bill's $11.18, how much change do you get back?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how much change do you get back, Barry? Oh, you didn't know I was going to give you math questions?
Oh, $8.82.
$8.82. Yeah, good man. Yeah, I guess that's a skill.
Or worse, I'd give them the 18 cents.
Yeah. So what about you, Patrick? Were you more paranoid, scared, or have dirty underwear after reading the book?
I just think about how life would be if electricity would go out for a long time. I've done without it for 4 days before, and that was enough of a pain in the rear. How do I deal with my family and everything else if it were out for months?
Well, for months. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think we can ask that question to a lot of our friends and colleagues that are in Texas right now with what happened last week, with regards to not having power and that redundancy. Because even with the not Petya, but then the other Ukraine attack, they were able to switch over to manual quite easily. For us to try here in the U.S. to try and switch our power plants over to any type of manual would be extremely difficult. As I know, one of you already mentioned was the fact that everything's digital. It's hard to go in and change that, trip the breaker or whatever else. But yeah, in the power plant environment, especially here in the U.S., to switch over to manual is not as easy it was over in the Ukraine, and that's how they were able to get their power back up and running. From the first attack they had in, what was it, 2015, I think. So, yeah. What about you, Jerry? I didn't ask you that question. Paranoid, scared, dirty underwear?
Working in disaster recovery so long, not so much, but just kind of more angry at Russia for all they're doing. I fortunately, have friends all over the world, so I know quite a bit about that. But at the same time, it's still like, really, guys, come on, those are civilian targets.
Yeah. Let's try to keep it to the military or whatever. I mean, even still, you look at cyber; it's almost like the fifth domain. Who needs a space force? We need a cyber force. But anyway, so let me throw this one back over to Andy. Andy, did the book change your opinion or your perspective about anything? Do you feel different now than before when you read it?
I'm very apolitical, but he had a comment there about Rex Tillerson, at the State Department, and talking about how Rex said, "I'm not worried about the Ukraine, right? The U.S. citizens aren't, it's too far away." I'm like, well, that is the reason why your company has your stock price in the in the tanker, maybe. I mean, hello, this is a geopolitical environment we live in, and the cyber world is the tip of the spear of that in the last decade, and we as a country have to move forward in that aspect. So I really, this book is like, I feel like I'm on the pulpit and I'm shaking this book as the Holy Bible is like, this is it, guys, please read this. This is a great 30,000 foot book that somebody could pick up and read and kind of understand all of this in a couple hours.
Yep. No, I agree. What about you, Jerry?
Not really much on opinion, but really just kind of reinforces my perspective that, like he was saying, we're geopolitical. Every company is connected to every other company in some way. Governments are connected to each other in some way. And, just because the Ukraine is how many hours away by airplane doesn't mean what's happening there doesn't affect us.
Right.
Of course, that from being an example from the book, but it's just like we recently had the earthquake in Japan. That's going to affect us.
Yep. And
so we need to pay more attention to, as you said, cyberspace as its own kind of world rather than the actual geography of the physical.
Yeah. Yeah, as Tom said, he put in the chat, was cyber is the fifth domain for the DoD. So yeah, that makes sense. Patrick, let me ask you the same question. Was your opinion changed or perspective about anything with regards to the book after reading it?
Not really. Again, I didn't realize that all those things were connected, and now that they are, I guess I will wonder when I see the next thing happen if it's connected too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, especially with SolarWinds and everything coming out of that. And I think somebody made a comment earlier about, I wonder what the book for SolarWinds will be called. Yeah. Barry, what do you think the book's strengths and weaknesses are if somebody were to read it?
The strengths is how well put together the book is. It's a very clear narrative, and he does a really good job of connecting all the dots. Didn't really find a lot of weaknesses to it, other than maybe better identification of who these people are and how reliable are they as a source. I mean, yeah.
Andy, what about you? What did you feel that what were the book's strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, I second that. It was really put together. It's a strength, and it was an easy read. But unfortunately, you can't have an easy read and a technical read, right? So as much as we, at times I'm like, oh boy, I wish, I could read another 50 pages on this and just drill down in a lot more technical aspect. And but then it wouldn't be as fun because the chapters just kind of fell through, and you can't really. I had a hard time putting it down.
Right. Right.
One cup of coffee after another. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, geez, it's already midnight. I gotta go to bed.
At least you didn't say it's 3 a.m. I gotta go to bed. Yeah.
Well,
have that happen sometimes. Jerry, what about you? What did you feel were the book's strengths and weaknesses?
Like him, the narrative was just easy to read. It was just well put together, good information. It definitely seemed to be fact checked. It even had little notes in some spots about things. The only weakness I would say is maybe, as he would say, maybe somebody who's not as technical might have to stop and look something up.
Right.
But that's kind of comes with the territory. I don't think if he were to expand upon the technical aspects of it, that you would be able to fit that in a 300-page book.
Right.
You may have to have a couple volumes there. Maybe make a mini series out of it. I don't know. But
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, with the information in there, I know that there's been several news shows that have done similar stories and made mini episodes out of, or made multi-episodes out of it. So yeah, that could be interesting. Barry, any last thoughts or message that you'd get to convince somebody to read the book?
In a lot of ways, it reminds me of an older book about Cuckoo's Egg. Remember that one? Where, what was it, a 2-cent discrepancy in accounting led to all of this stuff?
Yeah.
So if you enjoy a good whodunit and like following it through, I highly recommend this book. In fact, I have recommended it to at least a dozen people already now.
Cool. Awesome. I'm sure Andy would be happy to hear that. What about Patrick? Any last thoughts, comments regarding the book?
I think it was a great read. I think you needed a little bit of technical background to get what was all there, but I found it enjoyable, and I think it'd be a good thing to point to people who don't really believe this stuff happens.
Good. Yeah. Good point. Good point. I know I've had my father-in-law, I gave him I didn't give him this one. I gave him Manipulated to read because of a lot of the ongoing issues and everything else. But yeah, definitely Sandworm is a good book to get folks to read if they want to learn a little more about cybersecurity. Andy, any last thoughts or comments?
No, I tell you, it was really riveting when he was going into the background of the Ukraine story, right? In the pre-World War II and after post-World War II, and the civil rights violations. So it's really in a forefront in we kind of think about our lives
right
now, right? And part of the program we have at Quantico is that every new Asian class goes through the Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C. and tours the the abuse of power, right? That's
Right.
so important in this aspect, and that's what we're really getting into it, right? And you have to border that, coming from this the United States government, in what we can wield, and and how other countries also interpretate that as well.
Cool. How about you, Jerry? Any thoughts? Last thoughts?
Just really what everybody's been saying about how, it's kind of eye-opening for some people. People are going to deny, oh, well, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. So definitely, like everybody's been saying, definitely a good read for people to kind of say, hey, look, this does happen. It's more common than you think. You need to pay attention to it.
Cool. Well, before we wrap this up, I want to just kind of put that out to everybody that's attending, watching this live. Do you have any questions or concerns that you had that may not have covered in our chat? I figure if you've got a question, you can drop it in the chat, or you can unmute and ask your question. This is where I get the crickets. No? All right. I figured I wanted to make sure, see what people, make sure everybody had a chance. If they wanted to ask a question, they could. But otherwise, pick up Sandworm. I highly encourage everybody, as we've heard from Patrick and Andy and Jerry and Barry, with regards to the different top questions I asked, just the insights that you get from it, as well as the information, and just kind of opens up your eyes and adds that extra level of security awareness of what possibly could happen. So in the slide deck, and of course I'll make this is made available, but I had the opportunity to see Andy at a conference a year ago, pretty well last week or a couple weeks ago, S4, which is held down in Miami. It's an ICS conference, and he had Andy there, and the video is out on YouTube. You can go out on YouTube and just search Andy Greenberg Sandworm, and be able to see that interview. It's only about 30 minutes, but Andy gives a little insight into the book and everything else. I tried reaching out to a couple contacts to see if there was a way to get Andy to show up tonight. That would have been awesome, but unfortunately couldn't get that pulled off. But there are some videos where you can see an interview from Andy, just kind of get some additional insight. So what I'm curious to know is this something you enjoyed? Is this something you would like us to do again? Because I would love to keep these conversations, try and do something different. I've talked to other chapter leaders, and they were kind of surprised by book club, and so I just want to put it out to those folks if you liked it, and if we'd like to do another one. So just drop something in the chat. Let me know here real quick. Cool. Michael's ordered the book. Awesome. So what I decided is I pulled one of the books that was kind of the runner-up from the last time we did this, because we picked it in November, and you find 47 people that are on this are going to help us decide what we'll do for our May book club. So the first book, as I said, the runner-up from last time that came in second place to Sandworm, was The Fifth Domain by Richard Clark. Defending our country, our companies, and ourselves in the age of cyber threats. Then we have Manipulated by Teresa Payton, which is phenomenal inside the cyber war to hijack elections and distort the truth. Again, this book came out of what was going on in 2016 with the election, with the Russia interference and the social engineering and the manipulation, the misinformation, disinformation campaigns. A third one, Human Hacking by Chris Hadnagy, and I've realized that I've put this up, and we've got that new book from the other hacking book that
Peter.
Excuse me. Whoops. And then oh shoot, sorry about that. Countdown to Zero Day. Kim Zetter was the other one. All four of these books are on Audible. You can get them on Amazon. So if this is something you'd like to do, then pick 1, 2, 3, or 4 and let me know which one I'm not saying you will, but we'll do a popular vote and see which one everybody would like to do. 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's hard. It's like choosing a favorite child or pet. Yeah, I know, Jerry. So just start dropping in the numbers, 1, 2, 3, or 4. By the way, I have all 4 of the books. I have The Fifth Domain, Manipulated, Human Hacking, and then Countdown to Zero. So let's see what kind of numbers we get coming through here. Got some good feedback coming in. Too cool. All right. I'm going to have to call on Christopher to keep a tally for me if he can. And then once we get done with our next presentation, we will, I'll announce which one it is so everybody can go through. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to put Peter's book on here after announcing it earlier, but I'll give everybody a chance to go out and buy it. Maybe we'll put it in for our August book club. So no voting twice. Yeah. Otherwise it could really get interesting. So cool. All right. Well, while everybody continues to vote, I'm going to stop my sharing here and I'm going to turn this over to Jerry, who's had volunteered and was great in our previous chat there with regards to the book with Sandworm. But she heard the title of her presentation she's going to give to us tonight is Does Digital Native Status Impact End User Antivirus Usage? Very interesting because the digital native term I've been using for years, digital natives, digital immigrants, when you start looking at people that came into the digital world where we've got kids that kind of grew up with it. So I'm going to turn it on over to Jerry and her. You can share your screen there, Jerry, because I've turned mine off. And real excited to have you present. It's great having one of our own members present. This is always great when we can do this. Take it away.
Hey guys, afternoon again, or I guess evening by now. I hope everybody's having a good week so far. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, you can see. Okay, perfect. All right. Kind of new to playing around with 8x8. I'm used to the 4-letter word I'm not allowed to say that sounds like running. So
you're welcome, Andy.
All right. So basically what I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about is what we call the digital native myth or digital native idea, and kind of how it's been impacting our information security programs, and kind of give you guys a different perspective than maybe you have on digital natives. So what exactly is a digital name? Well, we've heard digital native as, James was saying, a lot of times we think of those as people who grew up with technology, so they're native to it. They speak that digital language. But really, this is a term that was coined by Mark Prensky in 2001. He was talking about the changes in how we're doing education and how students are learning and what we need to do to kind of adapt to those changes. And really, he defined that as anybody who was born after 1980. So if you were born on or before 1980, you were considered a digital immigrant. So basically, the idea is that as a native, you were born during the time of technology, you grew up with it, it progressed as you grew up. Whereas if you were born before that, you had to adapt to it later in life. And again, it was originally intended to describe how students learn and that difference there. So some assumptions we might have based on that. There are many assumptions based on digital natives. Many of these assumptions lead us to believe that maybe younger people are better or more versed in technology. Hey, they grew up with it, so they're better with it. They just get it. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's kind of been proven wrong in some studies. So there's a controversy around the idea of the digital native. Some have even called digital natives as the digital Yeti of kind of our digital world, which, not quite a Yeti, but, I am a digital native. Other factors have been examined and seem to kind of go along better, such as digital divide, kind of things like that impact end user behavior. However, the literature, what it actually says as far as that goes, it's kind of divided. So it's all over the place. So some people say, yes, we see that it's going to impact. Other literature says, hey, it doesn't. So again, it's kind of all over the place, which kind of leaves us somewhere where we're kind of floating. Most of the literature, however, looks at age groups. So those generations, you guys are probably more familiar with that, like boomers and millennials and all that, rather than actual digital native status, which has to do with that birth date of 1980. Some literature does find a difference between younger and older, and some does not. Again, we've got controversy here. So based on that, I wanted to look kind of at that motivation. Is that age going to impact something? And when forming that study, just to give you guys some background, this was actually what I did my dissertation on. This is how I became Dr. Jerry instead of just Jerry, or Professor Jerry, I guess, because I've been a professor for a while, was the protection motivation theory. Was one of the ones that I kind of kept hitting when I looked at information security research and information security behaviors. And one of the behaviors that is examined a lot is usage of protection methods, such as like turning on your firewall, using antivirus, backing up your data so if it's lost, you have it, and all of that stuff. Now, protection motivation theory itself has actually been around for a while. First published in 1975 by Rogers. There's been several iterations, as they add stuff, finding, hey, this thing might impact it or that thing might impact it. Originally in medicine, kind of looked at risky behaviors such as smoking. That was one of the original ones, or, pregnant people getting their vaccines and stuff like that. And it moved kind of from medicine and kind of went to other fields. Now it is actually commonly used to look at IT and information security behaviors, like safe passwords, antivirus usage, and things like that. So, having said that, protection motivation theory, this is actually what it kind of looks like, the model, the idea behind the theory. The theory basically means that we have some sort of adaptive response in response to some sort of fear, which that adaptive response is also known as the protective response. So something happens and we're afraid. So now we're going to do something, kind of like that fight or flight idea. How do we make that decision? What are we going to do? So there's a couple different things that along the way that we found kind of go into that. We have the threat appraisal, which when we're looking at the threat, we have to figure out, is that a big enough threat to react, or are we just going to, whatever. And part of that threat appraisal is something we call maladaptive rewards. Basically, you do the wrong thing and you get rewarded in some way. For example, with our antivirus, that might be, hey, the maladaptive reward is to not use the antivirus. Guess what? I didn't have to spend the money and the time to use the antivirus, so I guess I'm rewarded for not using it. Other items have to do with the actual coping. So once we've kind of decided, hey, is this a threat? How do we cope with it? One of the biggest ones is self-efficacy. Do we believe in ourselves enough to think that we're going to be able to do the thing to protect ourselves? Do we think we're going to have enough knowledge to implement that firewall or that piece of antivirus or anything like that? The other thing is the response efficacy. Is that piece of software going to work? Do we think it's going to work? If we don't think it's going to work, we're just not going to bother using it. And response costs. Oh man, that antivirus is extremely expensive. Am I really going to use something that expensive? If I go back up to that threat appraisal and say that threat isn't very high, why am I going to spend a lot of money on that threat? So there's some things that go into that. Now, for this study, I threw digital native status into it. So I do have the raw data if anyone wants to actually examine this in a different fashion. But for this study, I looked at how digital native status mediates fear. For example, if I were someone who maybe was a digital immigrant, would I be more likely to be afraid of that virus or that hacker and more likely to do that adaptive response? So kind of examining there how that impacts how that goes. So what actually spurred this research? Some background about the research. So we talk about digital native status and how there are assumptions, and there's how some research that says it's this thing or it's that thing. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The big thing that really spurred my idea to do digital native status in this case was my parents. Both my parents are now in their 70s. However, they are extremely proficient with technology, and they were actually the ones that got me into tech. My dad brought me home my first computer, which was one of those AMD K6, if you guys remember those back in the day. I upgraded it from DOS to Windows 3.1. That was like my favorite little project in computer when I was a kid. And they both continue to keep up. They actually are the technology help for yeah, and the 400. Yes, yeah, Atari. Yes, I actually have an Atari tattoo. Fun fact. So yeah, they were both basically the ones that kind of help their neighborhood, and they go around helping their neighbors set up their Ring and their doorbells and their Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So they don't fit that mold. So I wanted to look kind of further into that to see if that mold really did make sense. So yeah, again, it goes against what we assume. We assume, oh, somebody's not a digital native, so maybe they don't know. I'm seeing a lot of cool computers in that list over there. Maybe someday I will share my game room with you guys. I have my Tandy TRS-80 with my 8-baud modem I can show you.
You still have it working?
Yes, it still works.
Wow. The Smithsonian called. They want their computer back.
Right?
Very cool. Sorry.
That's all right. We all go on tangents. It's our love of technology. So what I did to conduct this research was I did a survey research, and this was run by Question Pro. They actually have been really good compared to some of the other ones. Like SurveyMonkey wanted like $1,800, and Question Pro was like, yeah, sure, we'll do everything for like $500. There are other ones you can do too if you're doing survey research, but they were really good to me, so I went with them. And the survey was comprised of some Likert scale questions. If you guys don't know what a Likert scale, that's usually like a 1 to 5, where it's like agree to disagree, with 3, being neutral. And it was modified actually off of another research using PMT by Boss in 2015, where they were looking at different behaviors like antivirus usage and usage of backups. So what I was actually trying to find out here was first, what extent do high fear levels relate to increased usage of antivirus when moderated by digital native status? Mainly, does digital native status actually, elevate fear? Does it have anything, maybe higher fear for them means higher likely to use antivirus? What are we getting here? The second question was looking more at to kind of confirm what we've seen in other research, like does higher acceptance of maladaptive rewards increase usage of antivirus or decrease it? What about response efficacy? How does that impact everything? Self-efficacy. As I said earlier, that's one of the ones I saw in a lot of the research that said, hey, self-efficacy is a big, big, big thing. If you don't think you can do it, you're not going to do it. And the other one was response costs. our high costs of the software or the time or whatever we perceive as costs of using that, is that going to impact how people, actually do their antivirus? So my sampling, it was very, very basic sampling. Of course, this might leave room for further research and things of that nature in the future, but I was looking at people who are 18 years or older, citizens of the US, and regular computer users. They didn't necessarily have to be very familiar with information security or anything like that. Just somebody who might be on the computer, a couple hours a day or an hour a day or something like that, to get a good idea about that. So my sample size, I was looking at about needing 132 respondents. I used a program, if you guys are familiar with it, it's called G-Power. It's actually a free program you guys can go out and run. And based on what you might need, you can plug in some numbers and it'll give you an idea of how many respondents you need to get that particular alpha that you need. So they're basically needed 66 digital natives and 66 digital immigrants. So my sample size wasn't necessarily huge, which made it easier to get more people. However, that may be something we look at in further research. But what I actually got was I got more than I needed, which was great because I got 83 digital immigrants and 76 digital natives. Question Pro, which houses the survey, also did the sampling for me. So they were able to go out and, based on my criteria, get people to come and do the survey for me. So that definitely also made it a lot simpler. So what did I find? So after all the survey was done and all the raw data was, downloaded and everything put through SPSS, no, unfortunately, I don't know R. Otherwise, I would have done that. But everything was put through SPSS. What did I find? So a couple key findings. First was digital native status didn't seem to have a relationship with fear and adaptive response. It didn't seem to mediate at all. It was the same across the groups between immigrants and natives. So that actually did not surprise me as much because a lot of the research is kind of back and forth on that. However, it did kind of confirm what we know, that fear had a positive relationship with adaptive response. If you ever hear positive relationship, that means when one goes up, the other goes up, and one goes down, the other goes down. So that meant in cases people have an increased fear of viruses or, malicious actors or whatever on their computer, they would have an increased adaptive response. So they would be more likely to go and get an antivirus and put that on their computer and have it running. A couple other things. Maladaptive rewards didn't seem to have any impact. That doesn't surprise me either, because in this case, it seems to be that with the costs of antivirus, because they are so prolific and out there so much, the costs aren't extremely high, and a lot of people know about it, and a lot of people already use it. So that did not surprise me. There is a significant relationship between response efficacy, meaning that you have higher response efficacy, you have higher adaptive response. Basically, that just means, hey, if I think the response is going to work, I'm going to use it. So people, here, it seems people do have faith in antivirus, that antivirus is going to work and do what they think it's going to do. So in this case, people said, yeah, if I think it's, good, I'm going to use it. Self-efficacy, which was the one that I pointed out earlier, no surprise there, positive relationship there. That means if you have a higher self-efficacy, you basically, yeah, I think I can do this, so I'm going to go ahead and do this because I know how to do it and it's going to work because I did it right. So that was no big surprise. There's not a significant relationship between response costs and the adaptive response, which again, that makes a sense for the maladaptive rewards, because our antivirus software has been out so long and it's so available and there are different competitors, it's not extremely expensive, and it is freely available in some cases. So that didn't seem to make any difference. So some takeaways that I had from this. This study does align with other research that suggests fear impacts adaptive response, which that can make some sense. If you're afraid something's going to happen, you're probably going to do something. Hey, there's a hurricane coming, so I'm going to put up some shutters on my house, right? Hopefully the HOA does not yell at you like my HOA, but that's the basic idea. It also aligns with the idea that digital native status is not well understood. It's still kind of an amorphous concept in that there's so many different studies that conflict with it. So in this case, it said, nope, it doesn't have anything to do with the fear. But if we plugged it into something else, as I said, I do have the raw data. So if you want the raw data, let me know and I can send that to you and you can play around with that if you want. But pretty much it said that, we don't think it has an impact, but again, it might have an impact somewhere else in the model. This study also confirmed that maladaptive words sometimes impact decision-making, but not always. That's something we've seen in research, and that's something that we actually know. Also confirmed that response efficacy definitely impacts decision-making. If I think this thing's a piece of junk and not going to work, I'm not going to use it. What's the point, right? Also confirms self-efficacy is a impactor of decision-making, which again, we know that from tons and tons of research. This has been something that we've been researching since 75. And yeah, we definitely know that makes an impact. This also confirmed what we know about the response costs, that they don't always impact decision-making. In this case, I think because it was antivirus, we know that antivirus is freely available in some cases, so it might not even been on their mind about that because it's free. So the only response cost is actually going in and installing it, the time it takes to install it. So going out after that, so doing a little bit more research after I completed my study, there were some impacts I found, taking from the literature about how our preconceived attitudes and notions about our digital natives, our digital immigrants, kind of impacts information security. And this is where I want you guys to kind of change your perspective. Sometimes older employees are left out of the decision-making process regarding IT, information security, and things like that. So they're kind of left to fend on their own, which is pretty sad considering some companies consider anybody over, the age of 40 to be a quote unquote older employee, which that's not right. But at the same point, I'm 35 and I've been doing this for years. My roommate is 41 and he has a master's in IT and he does that professionally. And, my parents are in their 70s and they do this on a regular basis. So that's kind of a notion that we need to get out of our head because it does take older employees out of the loop in some cases. Other things we've been noticing is that it has impacted information awareness programs. Information awareness programs are not properly tailored to older people in that they are oversimplified. In some cases, just not enough information, just the, hey, don't do this thing, which really doesn't help some people. Because it, in some cases, somebody might be doing something as a workaround for something else, and you may need to have that conversation with them instead of just telling them don't do it. So that's not a good impact either. Serious threat actors are ignored because of their age. This is a big one. I remember reading a story recently about a grandmother who went into stores and was having her grandchildren steal while she distracted the employees. So she feigned being, this helpless grandma. Oh, I'm old. I need help. Help me, And because of our preconceived notions, nobody really paid attention to the kids or, if the grandma was doing anything, and the kids got out of that store with thousands of dollars worth of products. So yeah, we need to realize that that's the case. We've seen that in several places. In fact, some threat actors are recruiting older people just so that way they can get by manipulating our preconceived notions. The other thing is sometimes older employees are made to feel like they're talked down to or treated like children, which that can create dissent, which in some cases that could even create threat actors there, because someone might come to them and be like, hey, you're dissatisfied in your company, right? You want to get back with them, right? And they might be like, yeah, let's stick it to them. Let's hack them or something. So we want to make sure that we're, keeping all of this in mind and kind of get rid of that preconceived notion that just because you're a digital native or just because you're a digital immigrant, that your technology ability is a certain way. So future research. Look at other factors such as experience. Experience doesn't necessarily come from age. I know some people in their 40s who have been doing this for 20 years. I also know people in their 30s that have been doing this for 20 years. So age doesn't necessarily mean experience. Knowledge level. I know people who have been doing this for 20 years. And if you were to try to put them on like a try hack me box, they'd be completely lost. So yeah, definitely age is not a big thing. It's experience and knowledge levels. Other things that were suggested for study. The BOSS study used what we know as fear appeals. And that's where we pop up like a warning message like, hey, warning, you have a virus. You have to put antivirus. Now, this is a very well common known thing that they do with actual viruses. So they'll get you a pop-up, hey, you need to install this antivirus because you got tons of viruses, right? Or, I've got, 500 viruses on your computer, so you have to click this button, which has in many cases caused severe infections. So fear appeals might drive behavior in a different way, along with other messaging. Longitudinal studies, meaning over time. This study was basically done as a one-time, everybody went in, did the survey, and that was it. So we might want to look at everybody does the survey, and then, 6 months later does the survey again, and then 6 months later does the survey again. The only problem with that is you do get fall off and attenuation from attendees and people doing the surveys, just because, they might forget, or they might decide after doing it the first time, I don't want to play with this anymore. Hybrid study methods. So we might look at doing studies that are both experimental and survey research and see if, we actually can find something different in behavior when they're in an experimental setting versus just a survey. John, the slide with the notepad reminds me of an InfoGuard meeting where they related a story of a recovery activity and told the employees they were going to have to use pads. Excitement quickly died when they started passing out pencils and pads. Oh, yeah. I can see that. All right, a broader population, world versus only USA. This study was only in the US, so maybe attitudes and customs and things in other countries might impact these opinions. The other thing that I did not put on here was our last presentation. They did some research about working from home and how COVID has changed. These surveys were actually completed before the COVID crisis. So maybe we might want to revisit it and see if there are some different attitudes because of COVID and the way that the work environment has changed. So that's definitely something to look at. And Yeah, cyber design is easy. Yep. Implementation is impossible. That's for sure. So if you guys are interested, want to know more, again, you guys can email me. My email is on there. That's my work email for Valencia College. I teach over there in the cybersecurity and network engineering technology department. You guys can email me any questions. If you want the raw data, I'll have to go and find it, but I have it somewhere. And my LinkedIn and my Twitter if you guys want to follow me. So I appreciate it, guys. I hope I didn't, put everybody to sleep. Unless you've been having issues sleeping, then hopefully you got a good nap. So thanks again, guys, for having me. I hope you guys have a great week.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jerry. Good information. Just real interesting in regards to what you were discovering and everything else. And glad to see that there's room for growth and other opportunities that you can give your presentation or you can continue your research on. Does anybody have any questions for Jerry? Great opportunity. We've got plenty of time. You can unmute or drop it in the chat. All right, go ahead, Eric. You guys should be able to unmute yourself if you want to. I don't think I have to do that. Nope.
No, people can unmute themselves.
There you go. Okay. I was going to say, I think Eric Locksheen said he was going to say something. Nope. All right. Well, as we said, Jerry's got her contact information. Definitely. Oh, go ahead. I'll type. Okay, Eric. The joys of virtual meetings, but yeah, definitely check out Jerry. Be interesting to kind of see what more you're able to come out from this. So while we wait for Eric's question to pop up, I figure what I would do is I'm going to go ahead and take over sharing again. If you want to release it there, Jerry. Cool. And what I'm going to do is, let's see, let me fix this real quick. Where did there it is. I'm working with two monitors, so I've got to get my sharing here going in. Share this. Okay, so I figured I would share the results for the book club for May 2021. Now, concerning the fact that, I don't have my camera on. Let's turn this on. There we go. All right, so you should see my desktop as well as me. Concerning the fact that we came out of an election season, I figured, people would be happy to vote. We had 20 people vote on the book, which book we were going to go with. And the winner, actually the top two that we had were Manipulated by Teresa Payton and then Countdown to Zero Day by Kim Zetter, which is almost like a precursor to Sandworm that was written by Andy that we reviewed tonight. But the one that was selected with the most votes of 11 compared to 8 was Manipulated. I kind of gave it away there. But anyway, so Manipulated by Teresa Payton is going to be what we will discuss in May. So this is on Audible. So if folks want to listen to, and it's Teresa that reads it. If anybody got to go to ISC Squared Security Congress, I think it was New Orleans. I know Walter was there. He'll back me up. But if you saw the New Orleans Security Congress back in 2018, I guess, Teresa Payton spoke at that conference, and she was fantastic. So now that she's got a book about Manipulated, this will be good with regards to disinformation, misinformation. It's techie too, but it's got a lot of great stories and information that she's in there. So real excited that we'll be doing Manipulated. Interestingly enough, and the other reason I guess I'm kind of excited is Teresa Payton is going to be speaking at K4Con, which is the Know Before conference. I think it's going to be virtual though, but maybe I can get her to make a little video because have her come speak is like 10 grand and we're not going to swing that, but maybe I can get her to drop us a little note or video or something. So see what we can do with that. So let's see.
Teresa's also posting a lot of great stuff regularly on LinkedIn and all too. So if you're not following her, definitely I'd say get connected.
Bobby said he'll speak for 6,000. Great. You mean if we don't pay him, he'll shut up, and that's all it took? Oh man.
I'll
We
take
love you,
my
Abby.
cookies now.
Mattel football changed my life. I couldn't understand how that little thing with the little chip could produce such amazing graphics and hours of entertainment. Oh, okay. All right, there you go, Tom. Yeah, I guess most of us are digital immigrants. Yes, Walter. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, Eric posted his question. And flip native and immigrant around.
Oh, I was first introduced to computers in the 70s. Would I still be a digital native or immigrant? Or, yeah, would he be an immigrant or native? What do you say, Jerry?
You'd be considered actually an immigrant because it's a hard date of 1980.
Hard date of, okay. Yeah, I would always, I would go and give presentations, the Safe and Secure Online presentations to the life experience or the seniors. And I would always say that they are digital immigrants. I'm a digital immigrant, but I'm their digital translator. And I could, translate between both of them. So very good. Cool. So we've got that lined up. Let's see. I think that was pretty well everything. Yep. So if you're new to the chapter, that's how you can find us. I will have the registration for the March event is now active. So if you want, you can go out I don't have it on the website yet, but I will have it on the next, the link for it on the next slide. But again, you can find us you can email us on info@isc2cfl.org. You can reach us on Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn. We're all the social media, the website. I will update the website hopefully in the next couple of days, so the link will be there as well. March 1st, we hope to be able to send out the link for registration for the training event. And I'll have I've already got the event created for our March event. I just haven't added any information in there regarding our 2 speakers, but that will get updated, and I will send out the little newsletter kind of thing that I've been sending out. I'll make sure to get the button right this time. I know that when the email went out, I only had one person email me, so either everybody just ignored the button or didn't see it. But in the newsletter that I sent out, the register for event button that was there linked back to the January event because I copied the January newsletter and forgot to change that and didn't test the link. So I'll take the fall for that one. But I did have the link later on in the email, so we did have folks sign up. But we had a whole bunch of people sign up, and we had a good turnout tonight here for about 47 of us here overall. So 2 CPEs will be given to everybody as long as we've got your ISC squared number and we've identified who you are. I think we had somebody actually email us and tell us, hey, this is my name on the screen, and this is what it is. So again, big thank you to Dr. Jerry Roberts for her presentation on the digital natives, very informative, and a shout out and thanks to Barry and Patrick and Andy for providing your input and feedback regarding Sandworm. Excited to see. I saw some folks in the chat said that they had already ordered the book. So very, very cool. So if you want to participate next time, read Manipulated and let me know that you want to participate, and we'll put you on the list. And we'll do that in May. So very excited. Again, thank you everybody for taking the time out this evening. We had some folks here attending from outside of Central Florida, which was great. This is a great thing with these virtual meetings is that it doesn't have to be the local folks. You can come from all around, and we've got the link on the website. So everybody, again, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Will. See you, Brian, Patrick. Let me kill the sharing. There we go. Either the folks that are still left behind are stepped away or don't realize we've ended, or they're wanting to continue with chat.
Still recording?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we can stop the recording, Andy. We can edit that clip out. Oh, I think I got it. Oh, there we go.